Breaking news on Iran. Word from Reuters just minutes ago that Iran has decided to expel the BBC's correspondent from that country, giving him just 24 hours now to leave Tehran. Iran reportedly charging the BBC reporter dispatched that he fabricated news, ignored neutrality, and supported rioters. Let's get some perspective on this by our next guest, Raghida Dergham, the senior diplomatic correspondent for the London-based Al Hayat, also an MSNBC analyst. So, with a good morning, Raghida, let's first talk about all this reaction today, the word that they're expelling the BBC journalist. How do you read that? I mean, they call the protesters members of terrorist groups, expelling journalists, the Iranian president calling on the U.S. to stop interfering in Iran's internal affairs. What's going on?
Well, I think the regime is cracking down, actually. It's really cracking down not only on the demonstrators, but it is cracking. It's fractured, and it is very desperate. It's taken actions which are not at all logical. I know John Lyon, and I do know him as a colleague here at the United Nations, and he never manufactures anything. So I think this is quite blatantly a way of saying we don't want anybody to watch what we're doing and to change the subject.
Okay. What about the protests going on for a week today, and we expect to see more today? We saw thousands turn out on Saturday. Still, though, the number's far less than the hundreds of thousands we saw in other protests. But there's more violence now. How is all this shaping up?
It's understandable that it's going to be less numbers because of the threats, very blatant threats that have been put out by the regime, and because, you know, there is a militia along with the government cracking down on people as a militia. So it's understandable that the numbers are less. But listen, I think, Alex, that this is going to unfold over the next few weeks. It's not a one-day affair. I think there is no return to where things were before. And it's a dangerous situation internally that may be exported, but for the time being, it's very dangerous. And let's see what goes on.
You believe that there's no return to the time before? You don't believe that all the suppression of these protesters, the violence that's being incited, putting them in captivity and in prison, throwing them in jail, you don't think that is going to quell the protesters?
It will not quell the protesters. It may dampen right now the drive in thousands and hundreds and millions, but I think eventually that the verdict will be that this regime has acted irrationally and it cannot sustain itself anymore. I think the jury is still out as to what will happen, but I believe that this is not over. They cannot be. Iran cannot be the Islamic Republic of before the elections, when everybody feared Iran and was totally respectful and they were thinking that they could run the world. Now I think they are under scrutiny and they have failed so far. The world is watching.
All right, Raghida Dergham, thank you very much. We'll be speaking with you throughout this morning.
Thank you.
Back stateside.